Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the BPM Change Management PRR Review Monthly Meeting. My name is Isabella Nicosia, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating today's web conference. Today's call is being recorded, and the recording is for informational and convenience purposes only, and any related transcriptions should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. We will be taking questions throughout the call today, and you can enter the question queue at any time by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. And just a reminder to please introduce yourself and state your organization before asking your question. So as a reminder, these calls are structured to stimulate an honest dialogue and engage different perspectives. And while we welcome comments and questions, please just remember to keep those comments professional and respectful. So the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the proposed revision requests that are in the initial or recommendation stage of the process. Today we'll be discussing 21 PRRs, 17 of which are in the initial stage and 4 are in the recommendation stage. 2 were submitted by Gridwell Consulting on behalf of WPTS, and then 19 were submitted by the ISO. So this slide here outlines the BPM process that is part of the California ISO's larger stakeholder initiative process. And the purpose of BPMs is to set forth business practices that implement the ISO tariff. The ISO does conduct a yearly policy initiative roadmap process to consider and rank initiatives, and then policy changes submitted through the PRR process will be referred to in that policy initiative roadmap process. And then finally, each subject area in a BPM is based on enabling language in the ISO tariff, and the PRR process cannot be used to introduce changes that are not supported by existing tariff authority. So with that, we will start off with our first PRR, which is in the metering BPM. That's PRR 1352. It's in the initial stage, and Priyanka Namburi is on the line to walk us through this one.
Hello. Hi. PRR 1352 has been submitted to make an update to metering BPM. We have included the distribution credit factor requirement and also added the description for EIM load aggregation point, EIM ELAP load aggregation point description. The effective date of these, the DCF requirement is July 1st of 2021. Section 5.1.1 has been updated, and we have added a new section, 6.1.5, for the ELAP calculation. We have not received any initial comments, and the initial comment period has expired on May 18th of 2021. The next step is to post recommendation.
Do we have any questions on this PRR? Thanks, Priyanka. And as a reminder, to enter the question queue, you can do so by pressing #2. Okay, now for the direct telemetry BPM, we have one PRR 1351. It's in the initial stage, and Priyanka will also take us through this one.
So PRR 1351 has been submitted to add the distribution credit factor requirement to the telemetry BPM as well. So we added that requirement, and the effective date is again the same, July 1st of 2021. We have not received any initial comments, and the comment period has expired on May 18th, 2021, and next step is to post the recommendation.
Any questions?
There are currently no questions in the queue.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, now for the settlements and billing BPM, we have 4 PRRs. 3 are in the initial stage, 1 is in the recommendation stage, and Brenda Corona will walk us through these.
Thank you, Isabella. For PRR 1350, we created a charge code 6483. This is for the hour ahead scheduling process uplift settlement, and then also charge code 6484. This one's for the process uplift settlement allocation. And this is to accommodate the initiative of the real-time market import and export during the tight conditions. And we currently have the effective date of 6/1/2021 and will be implemented on the 6/29/2021 2021. We have no comments submitted at this time during our initial, and our next step is to post recommendation for this week. Next PR. 1339 is to exempt internal pseudo-tie resources from the inter-tie deviation settlement penalty. And this one was effective, dated in the 2/1/2021. So this is going to be a retroactive emergency fix. And we have no comments submitted at this time. Our next step is to post recommendation. Next PR. PR 1338 is a demand pre-calc to fix proration for load aggregation point neutrality. So this involves charge code 8835, as well many other charge codes within that PR. Do visit this PR. It does list all the ICGs, the conversion guides that we're changing. The fix is just to do LAP neutrality allocation for the participating load. So this does not contribute to the default LAP meter CAISO demand. More details on that is written in this PR. We do not have any initial comments submitted at this time. Our next step is to post recommendation. Last PR. 1335 is a charge code 7020. We updated this for the reliability must run capacity payment, and this has no initial comments submitted at this time. Our next step is to actually post the final decision by the end of this week. Are there any questions for the 4 PRs mentioned for settlement and billing at this time? Awesome. I'll take it back to you, Isabella.
Thanks, Brenda. Okay, now for the energy imbalance market BPM, we have 1 PRR in the initial stage, and Jamal Bataji is on the line to walk us through this.
Thank you, Isabella. Good morning. PRR 1349 for the EIM BPM is related to the summer readiness focus on changes to bid range capacity test and also other changes related to the last sold advisory dispatch results are also included in this draft. The target date for this is June 15. We did receive comments, one from Pacific Corp and one from the SRP, both submitted on May 18, and we edited the draft based on these comments and posted it last Friday. The initial comment period expired on May 18, and the next step is to post the recommendation. Any questions related to this PRR?
There are currently no questions in the queue. As a reminder, dialing #2 will place you in the question queue.
For the market operations BPM, we have 5 PRRs, 3 are in the initial stage, and 2 are in the recommendation stage, and Jamal will also take us through these.
For the market operations BPM PRR 1348, actually this is submitted by Western Power Trading, requesting to add description of losses impact of point of receipt energy LMPs related to the resource physically located away from its POR. This is still being discussed internally, and we will respond to this draft as soon as possible. Accordingly, we can restart this initial comment period and change the date to give more chances for comments back. So for the next step is to post our comments and allow more time to comment back on this. Is there any questions related to this PRR?
Hi, Jamal. This is Rayanne Quadro from Gridwell Consulting on behalf of WPTF. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Thank you so much for bringing this up on the call today. And actually, my question is more back at the BPM team in terms of the process. It sounds like you're shifting the dates here, and I'm just wondering how that fits into kind of the way that the PRRs are usually processed. I think pushing this PRR through is a priority for WPTF, so we're a little bit concerned about extending timelines when there's still, the recommendation period to go through as well, and I wonder why we can't do comments for that period instead of extending the initial period.
Sure. Actually, Rahul is on the line, correct? And I'm going to let him to give us some background on this draft as he's been dealing with it internally, and hoping that we can get some feedback back to you in this. And if possible, just to be fair, we need to extend the time back and put it to allow more discussion around it from the stakeholder as a stakeholder process. So Rahul, can you please comment a bit more around this topic?
So Jamal and Rihanna, if you can hear me, the change that's proposed in the Bpm language is adding more clarification to the Bpm language itself. I don't think it's changing the market application or changing the way we are implementing something in the market. We are internally having a discussion to see if we need to add more clarification to this language at this point, because recently ISO had published a knowledge article that explains some of the scenarios that is explained in this change. So we are just trying to figure out if this is the right time for us to make all the changes related to that specific topic, or just go with this change for now and then add more additions later. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does, and I just want to, say for what it's worth, our preference is that you go with the latter, that we make the changes we know about now without extending this life cycle and initiate a new life cycle if additional clarification is needed. The BPM is a living document, lots of changes coming all the time, so I'm not sure that since there's nothing particularly controversial about these changes that the timeline needs to be extended. So that's how we're feeling. Appreciate that others might have different ideas about that.
Sure. Point well taken, and we are trying to complete this by the end of this week.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I will move on to the next one, PRR 1345, and this PRR is to address the removing the higher priority that rock exports are given in real-time market. Also, the additional descriptions of the import and export leg of wheel to self-schedules also were provided for additional clarity into this draft. We received a comment from SRP on May 18. Also, in addition, we have few changes to the posted document that we will also make. And then again, here the idea is, to be fair, we should be able to restart this initial comment period, and we'll change the target date as well to July 1st for this particular PRR. So our next step is to repost the draft with the changes that we've gotten and allow more time for comments. And I believe Jordan also on the line from our legal department maybe need to add more clarity around this in response to the comment provided by SRP. Jordan?
Yeah, Jamal, I am on the line. Obviously this PRR is the subject of a complaint that was filed at FERC. So some of the issues that SRP brought up in their comments on the PRR are similar to those brought up in the NV Energy complaint. So we will be addressing some of those issues in our response to the complaint, which is due shortly. But as you've all said, we will be reissuing this PRR with some revisions to actually capture all of the intents that we had in the initial reason for the revisions to remove the higher priority for the rock exports. in the real-time market. So I think, yeah, big picture-wise, I think we've covered everything here with the fact that we're going to repost, allow another opportunity for comments, and then go from there.
And any comment?
Again, pressing #2 will enter you into the question queue.
There are currently no questions in the queue.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on to PRR 1344. This is related to Summer Readiness Initiative, but is focused on reliability, demand response, real-time process impact changes, management of storage resources during tight conditions, and real-time process during tight system conditions as well. We did not receive any comments on this PRR, and the initial comment period expired on May 18, and the next step is to post recommendation for this PRR. Any comments?
There are currently no questions in the queue.
Thank you. I will move on to PRR 1337. This is related to FERC Order 831, the penalty prices phase, at which the ISO market will relax market constraints under the increased energy bid cap. Effective date was March 20th. No comments submitted, and the recommendation comment period expired on May 18. And our next step is to post the final decisions on this PRR. Any comments?
There are no questions in the queue. As a reminder, dialing #2 will place you in the question queue.
Thank you. I'll move on to PRR 1334. And this is related to the state of charge reservation, SOC, for regulation. And since our tariff requires all resources to respond to AGC, storage resources providing regulation must have enough SOC to respond to AGC. We did receive a follow-up comment from WPTF and CESA related to our suggestion to a previous comment for potential improvements, which includes the adjustment from 30-minute reservation to the min of 30 minutes or the number of minutes remaining in the responding hour. On this particular, I'm going to actually let Rahul also discuss this one. He has more insight on what's going on there, although maybe we're not completely ready yet to respond to this, but I'm going to let Rahul speak about this. Rahul?
Thank you, Jamal. So I think we received 2 comments from market participants about this BPM change. And the change that we are talking about was whenever a resource is providing regulation, the market is going to reserve the state of charge to ensure that the regulation capacity can be delivered for 30 minutes. So based on our recommendation for the change, we received feedback from participants. And one of the specific feedback was that if a resource is providing, say, regulation, and as we are approaching the end of the hour, then they feel that the requirement for SOC to support regulation does not require 30 minutes, but should be gradually reduced because we are reaching the end of the hour. And so I looked at the comments and, tried to figure out if we need to change our software. And one of the aspects that we have identified is in the ISO markets, we can substitute a regulation award for spin. And this is done because regulation up is a higher quality product than a spin. And if it's economic to purchase regulation and substitute for spin, then the market will do that. And this substitution can be done in both day ahead and real time. And as we all know, the spin product is a 30-minute product. So if we have a contingency event, in the second half or even the last 5 minutes of an hour, the resource, when it's called upon to deliver the spin capacity, is expected to deliver it for 30 minutes. Now, if in these scenarios the regulation capacity is being substituted for spin, then we need to ensure that there is 30 minutes of SOC that can be delivered during a contingency event. So that is one of the main reasons we still want to continue with the current approach. And having said that, we are going to continue to monitor the effect of this change of using or reserving the state of charge for 30 minutes whenever a resource is providing regulation, and take that performance into consideration for any future policy initiatives. So to summarize my comment, at this point, we are going to be in a, continue to wait and watch the impact of what changes we have implemented in production. And at the same time, we believe that the requirement for spin to provide a 30-minute is also being applied for regulation whenever regulation gets substituted for spin. Let me pause here and see if there are any questions.
We do have one caller in the queue. Caller, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Kathleen Colbert from Vistra. Can you hear me?
Yes, Kath, go ahead.
Oh, great. I just had a clarifying question. If a resource had a regulation award for a given hour, but it did not for the next hour, am I understanding correctly that the way the state of charge would still work is that it would be held, 30 minutes worth of it would be held from the last interval of the hour it had the award through the next hour? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think the way the scenario works out is, market application has various constraints. One of the constraints that we would implement if a resource has regulation is to ensure that the state of charge is sufficient enough to support continuous 30 minutes of regulation. And since we always solve for, just one more thought, since we always solve for binding and advisory intervals, this constraint would only be applicable for the time interval in which it had regulation. So let's say we are solving for a market with a start time of 11:50 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Then, and if the regulation award was only for the last two intervals, that's for 11:50 to 11:55 and 11:55 to noon, then that constraint would only be applicable for those two intervals and not for the rest of the RTD horizon.
Perfect. Thank you for expanding on that and clarifying. That's really helpful. Thanks, Rahul.
No problem.
We have no further questions in the queue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll move on to PRR 1354. This is the next 5 actually PRRs are related to market instruments. So to start with PRR 1354 market instrument, this PRR is to further clarify the ISO practice around the processing of reference level change request. The ISO also clarifying the content of certain CMRI reports. Did not receive any comments on this PRR, and the initial comment period expired on May 18, and the next step is to post recommendation. Any comments?
We have no questions in the queue.
Thank you. Next one is PRR 1354. This is actually submitted by WPTF. Is to provide the clarification related to the negative sub component for the EIRs as a result of market curtailment. We did receive an additional comment from PG&E on that PRR, and a follow-up comment also from WPTF. Again, on this one, we don't have a final draft or comment yet. And then, sorry, Rahul, I'm going to, again, refer back to you on this one for additional comment.
Sure, Jamal, and I think maybe we will have to see if there are any comments from WPTF. It's the same. These two PRRs are essentially in the same bucket for our review. We are just reviewing the final language, what is posted in this document, and this was similar to the change that's proposed in this document is similar to what we had for the POR resource, and the common thread between those two is these changes are mainly related to EIRs. And as I mentioned before, ISO had provided a knowledge article for EIRs, and we are just trying to make sure, we try to capture everything that is from the knowledge article into this document, or just go through with the PRR. And as we heard from the comments a few minutes back, the preference is still to, let this publish and then make any future changes. And I think we'll definitely take that into consideration and try to publish this by the end of this week. We can take any questions if we have on this topic.
Okay, currently no questions in the queue.
Thank you. I'll move on to PRR 1346. A few changes in market instrument related to summer readiness initiative, but this is focused on master file section of the market instruments Bpm. This effective date for this particular one is July the 15th, and this would be pending for approval, expected to be on June 27th. We did receive a comment from SRP related to this, having this PRR before for approval. I added actually a note to the drafted document indicating the implementation would be pending for approval that we are expecting on June the 27th. The initial comment period expired on May 18, and the next step is to post recommendation for this particular PRR. Any questions?
As a reminder, dialing #2 place you in the question queue. We have no questions at this time.
Thank you. PRR 1340, we are clarifying the expectation of the types of costs that can be included in the average cost field in the generation resource data template. Did not receive any comment, and the initial comment period expired on May 18, and our next step is to post recommendation for this PRR. Any questions?
We have no questions at this time.
Thank you. Last one is PRR 1336. This is also related to FERC 831 for the price screening methodology phase for input greater than $1,000 per megawatt hour. Effective date was March 20th. No comments submitted, and recommendation comment period expired May 18. And the next step is to post the final decision. Any comments on any one of these PRRs?
We have no questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamal. Thanks, Raul. Okay, so for the outage management BPM, we have one PRR in the initial stage, and Kalyani Apyankar is on the line to walk us through this one.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So PRR 1347 is for summer readiness. It relates to the resource adequacy enhancements phase 1. We included the effective date is June 1st. The initial comments period expired on May 18th. We did not receive any initial comments. A little update I would like to mention here is that in the original version of the PRR, we forgot to add a verbiage related to the planned generation outages. So we added those today, and the updated version is saved as PRR 1. So I would recommend if you want to take a look at that. Our recommendation period, our next step is for posting recommendations. And any questions for this one so far? All right. I will drive it back to Isabella. Thank you.
Thanks, Kalyani. For the reliability requirements BPM, we have two PRRs, both in the initial stage, and Melanie Bogan and Catalin Mixa are on the line to take us through these two.
For PRR 1343, this was for the Resource Adequacy Enhancement Phase 1 project. The reason for this revision was to include the new Resource Adequacy Enhancement Phase 1 tariff updates, as well as some changes related to 2021 summer readiness. I would like to thank PG&E for their comments. We agree with all the comments provided and are currently working internally on implementing their comments to the BPM. The next step is to post recommendation. Are there any comments or questions for this PRR?
As a reminder, once again, dialing #2, placing the question queue. We have no questions at this time.
Morning, everybody. The PRR 1341 is about the maximum recoverability multi-year allocation reservations and revisions to some of the transparency. Basically, this is the result of our last year's stakeholder process, and we have received no comments to date. It is effective on June 1st. Pending that we do get the approval from FERC as well this week.
Any questions on this PRR?
We have no questions in the queue.
Okay, thanks, Melanie and Catalin. And then finally, we have the demand response BPM. We have one PRR in the initial stage, and Hawaida Ahmed is on the line to take us through this one.
Hello, everyone. PRR 1342 for the demand response BPM include updates made to align with summer readiness. One of the updates is to the dispatchable options for the reliability demand response resources, increasing their options available to them, as well as including Appendix G, which was added to provide additional information for the load cap adjustment request form. These changes were made for effective date 5/1. We did not receive any initial comments. The commenting period ended on the 8th. The next step is to post recommendations.
Do you have any questions?
We have no questions at this time.
All right. thank you. Okay, and to wrap up, the next BPM PRR review monthly meeting will be on June 22nd at 11 a.m. And if you have any questions on any of the PRRs we discussed today or any questions about the BPM change management process, you can send an email to bpm_cm@kaiso.com. And thank you all for your participation today, and have a great rest of your day.
That concludes our conference. Thanks for using Event Services. You may now disconnect.